Good afternoon. Test. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. Good afternoon. This is the state of account abstraction 2 years after ERC 4337. My name is Jeff Wentworth. I'm a co-founder of Curvegrid. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you again to our sponsors and to our panelists. And we're going to get into it. So what I'd like to do first is go through some introductions. Then we're going to do some questions from me. Then we're going to pass it over to you in the audience. If you've got any questions, start thinking about them now. We'll have microphone to come around with, and then we'll do some closing thoughts. Before I get to introductions, though, I'd just like to do an audience poll, a show of hands. So raise your hand if any of you have used an account abstraction wallet before. Excellent. That's why you're here. So probably 95%. Now, how many of you use an account abstraction wallet as your daily driver, which means every single day? Okay. But you know what I see about 20 to 30%? That means opportunity. So those are two questions that I asked a year ago in Istanbul at Abstract Istanbul. At that time, we were that much further in the past. I'm going to ask two more questions now and curious to see sort of where we are. How many here have used a third-party paymaster? Okay, maybe about 20%. And how many here have used a social recovery feature? Okay, good. So roughly in line with the number of people that have used account abstraction. So let's do introductions. Hey, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, dive in.
Among the people who raised their hand, was it Argent?
There we go. Okay, so probably.
Yeah. It was a hidden, like everything is bundled into one app.
There we go. Well, it's good. Again, opportunity for everyone else, right? Okay, so let's start with introductions. Why don't we start at the end there? 30 seconds, your name, the company you work for, and just a brief description of your project. Please go ahead.
Hey guys, my name is Elias. I am a CPO, CEO, co-founder at Kakarot, zkEVM. We are building a provable EVM. What it does is it can either create a EVM runtime inside Starknet or prove any EVM transaction, so help OPE stack transition to zk in the long run.
Wonderful. And Elias, I understand that... Elias, right? No. Yeah. Yes. Okay, great. I understand that one thing that brought you to account abstraction was you had a wallet that was hacked, I believe.
Yeah.
Go ahead. If you want or not.
It pains me.
What's up?
It was my fault. It was in the early days. I was in the Arbitrum testnet before they went mainnet, and I was doing just random stuff at my dev shop. And I was using my normal key. And back then I was really inexperienced and dumb, and I pushed it to GitHub, the private key. And I didn't think about it. Classic.
Hell yeah.
And I didn't think about it at all for a long time because it was just my dev key. And I was like, what could happen? It's a devnet. And then fast forward 2 years, Arbitrum Foundation is like, we would like to thank the first user of Arbitrum with an airdrop. And then I look at my wallet the day on the airdrop and I see like tons of transactions, which is like transfer zero. And the first block where I get my like 10K ARB, gone. Gonzo.
We've many of us have been there. I'm very sorry to hear that, but a strong case for account abstraction if there was ever one. Please go ahead. Next.
Hello. Hi everyone. I'm Jamie. I work in product at the Starknet Foundation. Starknet is an L2 validity rollup over Ethereum. We have account abstraction baked into the cake. It's not just the icing on the top. So it's built into the protocol from the ground up. And no other configurations needed. So every account is a flexible smart contract. The Starknet Foundation is a community structure which is dedicated to fostering the development and grow the ecosystem on Starknet through supporting the projects through seed grants, growth grants, among some other things.
Wonderful. And I understand you tried an interesting Thai dish the other day.
So I've just been here for the last week at the Starknet Bangkok Hacker House, and I went out to a night market, and I saw some like interesting looking dish. It was like a shrimp dish, but all of the shrimp was still alive, so I expected them still to cook it. But then they put it in some like salad and some lime juice with the shrimp still alive, and they said, no, that's how you're meant to eat it. And they call it dancing shrimp. It's called goongtang. So, yeah.
Do you open them while they're alive?
So, yeah, no. You put them in your mouth, and they sort of dance and wriggle around while you eat them.
But don't they have like the shell? They don't have the shell?
Yeah, but it's actually such a thin membrane that you can crunch into it quite easily. It's a local delicacy. I encourage everyone to go out and enjoy Thai
I'm definitely going to try that. Thank you. Next, please. And let's see if your mic is good.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, here we go. I was pressing the button, feel like, hey, is it on or not? My name is Jérôme de Tychey. I'm the president of Ethereum France and host of HCC, and I'm also the CEO of Cometh. Cometh is a company that has been in business since 2020. We started by doing some gaming, and we have a game studio that published a new game recently. And Cometh is focusing on doing an account abstraction SDK right now, available in React Native and in Kotlin Swift if you want to build native apps. So we are good plumbers in this ecosystem, and very happy to share my thought and looking back at the state after those 2 years of 43.7.
Excellent. And you're a climber, I understand.
We are a lot of climbers at the company, like a lot of sport-oriented people at the company, and we are hosting a small side event on the Friday, breakfast and climb with Ethereum Friends. If you want to chat with the Ethereum Friends community, you're more than welcome.
Excellent. Thank you. Rahul, please.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Rahul. I'm a senior product manager at Aztec. I'm leading our imminent testnet launch soon, TM. Aztec is a privacy-preserving L2, so we have private state, public state. We have native account abstraction. And actually with privacy, account abstraction has like some really fun quirks. One of them is you can actually use a private contract or private functions without having to deploy them, which actually solves a bunch of chicken and egg issues of native account abstraction.
Wonderful. And I understand you went to a water park this week, a Ninja Warrior-style water park, except you can't swim.
I cannot swim,
but you're here with us.
Yeah, I managed to come out alive. It was like this inflatable balloon course. It was super fun. And I hadn't been to an aqua park since I was 15, so it was super fun.
Excellent. Wonderful. Shahar, please.
Good morning. I'm Shahar, head of partner engineering at Meadow Labs. Today I learned that you should not push your private key to Git. Nice. And Meadow Labs were the humble creators of zkSync, where we try to scale Ethereum's computation and values. And rather than scaling Ethereum's UX, we try to rethink it from the bottom up. So we also, like Starknet, has account abstraction implemented natively in the protocol. And excited to be here.
Excellent. And I understand you've been in crypto since you were trying to shard Bitcoin, which I'm not even sure how that works or what that means, but
me neither. That was my entrance into blockchain. I was just a student. We didn't hit 2016. We've never had even a blockchain research lab. I was just following a distributed computing professor that I really liked. He happened to be into blockchain, and he was determined to scale Bitcoin through sharding. You all know how it went, but it was a great experience.
Excellent. Wonderful. Well, let's get into it. Listen, I think everybody here has a pretty good understanding of what account abstraction and ERC 4337 are. But the question really is, for one of the panelists first, were we right to do 4337 2 years ago, or should we have pushed on to native account abstraction in the Ethereum ecosystem? Any takers? Go ahead, Rahul.
The way things evolve in Ethereum, purely from like an ops or a politics perspective, is you have to have something at the app layer. Maybe it is hacky, maybe it's not the best thing. And once it gets adoption, that's how you can convince core developers to have something at the native level. So just from like that point of view, it actually was the right way. Of course, in an idealistic world, it could have been natively enshrined into the EVM. But luckily we have L2s now, and L2s get to do whatever random, cool, fun things that they want. And so I think it was the right approach.
No, we had a EIP with two numbers EIP, like 86 or something like that, like very old EIP that were pushing for native account abstraction, but we missed this implementation. Initially, it was in the debate of the Ethereum Foundation very early on, like, should we do a native account abstraction or no? And I think we regret a lot not having done that before. Well, from my perspective, we should have done it before. Instead of getting that to L2s to implement and getting several flavors of account abstraction that we will have to reconcile at the EVM level and the L1 and so on.
I think for me, as L2s, we all are working for Ethereum. We all are trying to scale Ethereum. And we're all, the ones of us who are trying to put account abstraction natively, we want it to be the same everywhere. And so there's a chicken and egg problem here where Ethereum is trying to be this layer that lets the L2s experiment and then brings whatever works home. But at the same time, if Ethereum is not going to implement some standard, then we might take it in different directions. And sometimes it's just hard to collaborate. So implementing an imperfect solution 2 years ago, to me, was the right move to make sure that everybody goes in the same direction here.
And so, in that time, we've had this Cambrian explosion of L2s, right? We had on-chain summer 1, on-chain summer 2. We're still on-chain. I mean, everything is like L2s, L2s, L2s now. And do you think that with blobs on mainnet and cheap gas, does that at all take away from the case for account abstraction, especially something like 4337, or does it strengthen it?
So if you look at EOA users, which is the majority of the users, because this is the way to do so far. Saying L1 is going to be for big transaction, big moves, and advanced users that have EOA, and saying, well, everything else on the L2s, L3s, L4s, L5, L6 is going to be account abstraction because it's much easier. It's separating the Ethereum crowd in a way that we shouldn't have in the first place. So it's really hard to tell if we made the right choice, but at least we made a choice of letting the L2s implement those different solutions and see which are the ones that are winning and not winning at the end of the day. It all brings back the question of are we doing the right choice in terms of pushing different signers and activating different accounts with those signers. And that's raising some question around privacy preservation and subtopics around that we didn't have a strong mindset of we should do this or we should do that back in the days. And now we are like, well, maybe we have good solutions. Let's see when they are implemented, how they grow.
I think also if you start from the UX, I think it's fine to do whatever you can to get to the UX you want. And then anyone in the room who has looked at 437 and compares it with native account abstraction sees that one has lots of overhead and many intermediaries. So, but reach the UX where you can have one passkey onboarding, where you can have 2FA, anything. And as soon as you reach this, and you know that this is compatible with 50 teams, not 2, and then you can encourage teams to swap out the backend later on at no degradation of UX, and probably incorporate privacy preserving primitives as well as centralization mitigating stuff. Because right now, 437 does not prevent censorship resistance, as far as I'm concerned, because mempools are very centralized, and there's no such thing as a P2P mempool. So your users are kind of under your thing, and it's not your key, your right to migrate. What we all have to understand is now you don't have this, I take my keys and I go to another EOA wallet like this. You kind of have to do a transaction that transfers all your assets. And this is a lengthy protocol thing and might not be smooth.
Yeah, there's one problem I've always had with 437, but also I guess A in general, is it leads to walled gardens. In the EOA land, you created a wallet in Rainbow, you go to MetaMask, you can just import it, cool, done. That is much, much, much harder in 4337. I don't actually think wallets have this import button, so you're kind of stuck at the same wallet provider. Of course, there are modules now that help you transition. But even then, a lot of things have become much harder post-AA than pre. And of course, a lot of things still happen on L1. For example, who here farmed eigenpoints and LRTs and all of that? All of that was predominantly on L1, which means all of you predominantly use EOAs. I did, for example. And so you have this even worse thing where you have 50 wallet addresses now. Some of them are smart contracts, some of them are not, some are native, some aren't. You don't understand where you need which gas for payments. You have gas abstraction, but you still need to pay something. And it just becomes a giant confusion, at least for me.
Jamie, I think you wanted to jump in.
I just wanted to step in on one of the points that you made there about that old chestnut of vendor lock-in and siloed ecosystems and fragmented user bases. And on Starknet we have two main wallets, Argent and Bravos, each with their own vision of how best to have account abstraction, and then they have their own great features as a result of that, but they're different, and I find myself switching back and forth between each wallet, and sometimes I wish that I could just have a more unified experience. For instance, like on Bravos, there's a feature where I could be walking down the street in London, and it's a very real thing, this, and someone could accost me and hold up my phone and like get around the passkey stage by just using biometric authentication. I put my seed phrase in, but crucially, no transaction will go on chain until I go home and make a final signature, which would be great if we had on Argent. But then Argent has got some other great things like the Telegram wallet, like the credit card, and other things that I'd love to see. So yeah, it'd be great if we had more flexibility, since we have it, where we could say, hey, I have this signing policy from Argent, can I use Bravos, so as to create more of a unified wallet experience.
Quick comment on this?
Please.
I think we should all ask ourselves, why is it that not everybody in the room, why is it that we even need to ask who here used account abstraction, right? And I think the root of the issue here is that Ethereum launched without account abstraction. I think everybody here in this room probably knows that it was in the plans to launch with account abstraction. It was one of the features that were removed in order to launch faster. Now, I'm wondering if 4337 was launched with Ethereum, would the default be different? And even though it's not a perfect solution, in my opinion, yes, it would, because the power of the default is incredibly strong and super hard to overcome. And so for me, the way I see this, and to your question here, we have to better UX. Better UX would bring more users on chain, and once more users are on chain, once my entire financial life is on one ecosystem or something that feels like one ecosystem, I will have to use account abstraction because nothing else will cover my needs. I will be extremely scared to use anything without account abstraction, and only then will we get to flexibility across whoever is trying to implement account abstraction wallets, and the user experience through account abstraction will only be perfect in that world.
So all the good folks with native account abstraction are pressing where it's hurting the most. Like when you have a native account abstraction in your chain, well, it's great. Like everything is pre-packaged, it's pre-built, and there is no problem.
But it's not true.
And
That's not all true.
It looks at least much better from the external point of view, where you are on the EVM and you're like, so I have to patch and bend together a couple of Frankenstein solution because there's different things that you need to have in production in order to do 43.7, and it's not the best standard that's available, but it's still the standard that we are all moving forwards to. And like building on the EVM specifically with non-native account abstraction, I can tell you, like, you have lots of people working on the signer part of things, and there's a lot to chew. Definitely passkeys is an extremely good solution, probably the best compared to all the others. I think we have a talk from Nicolas Bacca that's going to put us down. Like now there's so many things that need to be solved on this front, but still, like, it's something that we can value as more sovereign than other non-generating your 24-word solution. So it's at least great that we are starting to agree on passkeys, and great, let's push for that. On the second layer, like, what do you use for smart accounts? Like, if we had native account abstraction on Ethereum, we would have had a precompile for smart accounts and run with the flow. Many of the account abstraction providers out there are like, well, I built my own smart account. Yay, good. So you take a shortcut and now you have a good smart account, you are auditing it and pushing it and so on, but still that makes lots of different smart accounts out there. Well, the oldest smart account is the one that we have chosen to build on. Take the North Face. It's not a good climb, the North Face usually. And safe, well, it allows for you to add some owners and get your safe out there, but it's not the best solution either. Like, safe was very slow to move into 43.7. So it's, you're always lagging behind on this kind of thing. And then the infrastructure of the whole 43.7. The what?
There was also gas fees.
Oh yeah,
like,
there's also gas fees. Like in order to be flexible and have the multi-sig on top of it, and all the modules that you can put on top of, like it's a lot of work and a lot of difficulty to maintain. And in addition to that, you also need the bundler, paymaster, and all the infrastructure. So you end up bandaging different things together. That's why we like to say that we are plumbers. Like at the end of the day, if you want to hack abstraction SDK, like you better get good at plumbing. And the consequence 2 years after is that we finally have a really good account abstraction application out there, very successful, lots of headlines everywhere, polymarket, no 4337. Just safe under the hood and get along with it. So for ambitious application that says, like, I want account abstraction because I think it's great, let's look at 4227. They open the book, they join account abstraction mafia on Telegram, and they're like, all right, so everybody's working on chain abstraction now? Okay, well, then let's go. Yeah, the state 2 years after is there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but the tunnel has been quite a long ride.
Okay, I'm going to ask one more question to the panelists, and then we're going to go to audience questions. So I think we've got a microphone ready. Start to think about your question. Put your hand up if you'd like to ask a question to the panelists. So, we talked a lot about the fragmentation, right? As well as, private mempools, and all of these different smart contract wallets and things like that. What does that mean for use cases? I think one of the big use cases for account abstraction is gaming, right? Where you don't have to think at all about, it's a Web 2 experience, but for Web 3. So that's one example. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that. Please, go ahead.
I can step in on that one. So I'm not sure if anyone played Flippy Flop a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so this was so much excitement over there. We've got a broken glass. So it's a kind of experimental game where you're flipping a tile and you're working against a bot, and it was just to test the limits of Starknet. And it was built by the brilliant team at Cartridge using their controller that does use session keys, pass keys, and paymasters. And what it does do is it means that we have this Web 2-like experience, and we can invite users who don't have to break their mental models of what it's like to play games in a Web 2 experience, but reap the benefits of Web 3. So the metrics were pretty amazing. So I think it was max TPS, 857 TPS across about 9.8 million transactions, costing only about $0.0028 dollars per transaction, which is why I wanted to push against one of the points about gas and transaction fees over there I heard earlier, which I think is a record for an Ethereum layer 2. So yeah, that's a great use case.
I wanna go into some of the use cases. So I guess beginning 4337, everyone spoke about non-subtraction, and you get to batch things, and this will open up the use case space. And today morning I looked at Dune, and I was checking all of the stats across EVM chains, and not many people are actually using batching. No one's using non-subtraction. But then I was thinking, okay, what are the actual things you can do with account abstraction? There are 3 things I want to talk about that's actually insanely cool, in my opinion. One, AA means you can extend users, right? So T's are a hot topic in the cryptography world right now.
TEE, that's right.
Trusted Execution Environments. And TEEs let you do a bunch of really cool delegation things. For example, you can have shared private state. All of us can go into a team, we can do lending or swapping together, and you can get complete privacy, dark pools, all of that. Because of account abstraction, because it's basically a contract, you can put the contract, it's your user account, which has keys. You put all of that in the TEE, and as part of your account contract, you put in the rules. Hey, there is a function called swapping, there's a function called liquidity pool. Aside from the classic account functions is this valid, or execute this, or multi-call this. And now all of a sudden, you have dark pools. Done. Simple. Another one is delegations. So I spent the weekend with Dan Finlay, who runs MetaMask, and they were working on a delegation framework. So one of the coolest things is account abstraction doesn't solve a bunch of issues. We still need to install a wallet. You still need your money even before a transaction may actually happen. And you can't put in some really complex things like I only want to submit this NFT in the marketplace when there is someone who wants my NFT at this particular price before this time. Imagine if you could delegate a bunch of these rules and you'd have kind of like a cron job or a solver who'd be there to do it. 7702 actually fixes a bunch of this. So you extend your EOA, you write these delegation rules on your smart contract, and just like that, you have an NFT marketplace where you only pay once the order is matched. You don't need your money earlier. You don't even need to like necessarily create an account and connect it. Even then, at that point, you just create a standard like cryptography signature. Done. A third one, and Elias, I might need your help on this. I saw a talk about how Kakarot's like helping out with Starknet and stuff. And I read that Starknet obviously has account abstraction. EVMs do not. And so you're using 4337's user ops to help and convert that into a Starknet-like transaction. I don't know if I have said that accurately. I was only in that talk for like 10, 15 minutes. You guys may know better than me. But that is an insane use case. You've taken a non-EVM chain, Starknet, and used 4337 or used user ops to convert it into an EVM chain. Those kinds of things are actually really, really exciting to me. So you extend what the users can do without having to even need a wallet and solve actual problems. Anyway, I'll end my rant. Sorry.
No. Elias, any comment on that? Anything to add?
Particularly on 4337 and Starknet, we're looking into how to make the standards like become compatible, but for now they're not. So I'm not entirely sure what you read, but in the specific topic of porting user ops and wrapping them into Starknet transactions, we have done this. But I'm not sure it...
right, okay, so, yeah, okay.
But it doesn't add anything except EVM compatibility, which is very nice.
Which is very cool.
Yeah.
Which is like a huge unlock, in my opinion.
We're going to go to Jamie, and then we're going to go to the audience.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like, the question was like, what use cases this opens up, and I just wanted to add a fourth by extension of what Rahul said. So one thing that particularly excites me at the moment is the potential of the agentic Web3 future, which I think it's fair to say.
You say argentic? Is that what you said?
Well, could be argentic. Yeah, argentic as well. That's what we're looking for. That's
put
for
it
sure.
on a T-shirt.
That's
put
for
that
sure.
on a T-shirt.
No, but I'm referring to the
agents.
Agents. Yeah, sorry, my pronunciation. And why account abstraction is so brilliant for this. So I think it's fair to say that there is a lot of fervor surrounding this, and some people are saying 80% of transactions may be done by agents in the next 6 to 12 months. And account abstraction is great for this because I can say, hey, as a user, as a moderator, I can constrain my agent to do such and such within these predefined guardrails that I define, so as to protect myself from hallucinations, erratic behavior, or God forbid, anything else. And as we do, as a foundation, as we do more research on this topic, we're finding that there is a sort of spectrum of different user dependence on agents, ranging from users who are perhaps DeFi novices, who would be very dependent on an agent and want to do wants the agent to do the thinking and the hard work for it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the DeFi power user that's probably just looking for a UX power up. And with account abstraction, we can have use cases for all of those satisfied, basically.
Audience questions. Anyone?
I'd like to make a prediction for the
sure,
use
go
case,
for it.
maybe, because we are going to have another abstract event next year, apparently. I hope so. And my prediction will be that we had app chains so far. The next step is having app accounts. And account abstraction is also a very good solution for that. Like create a new
app-specific accounts?
App-specific accounts.
Oh, like Dymo and all these.
Exactly, okay. App-specific accounts. And with 7702, you can also invoke, delegate, let the application use your accounts. It makes a lot of sense for the applications to now be the next one to carry the flame on the account abstraction, saying like, hey, it's much better for me as an application to have one account for this user. Let this user use whatever signer they use, whatever signer they prefer, in order to cast transactions on my applications, transactions that I will sponsor because it's creating fees for me. And I guess this is my guess is that this is the wave of adoption that we didn't really think of, and that's actually the one going to happen, because the way that Uniswap V4 and other DEX are now pushing their next wave of adoption is by just letting people sign and executing what's behind that. And account abstraction and the whole infrastructure that we built so far is very, very good to do that really, really effectively.
Wonderful. I think we had a question here. Yeah, please.
Hey, can you guys hear me fine?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. I'm a senior software engineer at ThirdWeb. I mostly handle our gaming SDKs and our account abstraction deployments. Pretty much every week we deploy account abstraction contracts and infra on like 10 chains. Some of them are zkSync chains. So very familiar with this stuff. I have two questions, one non-technical, one technical. For the non-technical, one thing I don't understand is like the Ethereum community seems to work in two ways. Half of it is on interoperability, standards. The other half is trying to make a global account for all of the blockchain. I do not understand the innate need to have a singular account or an import feature for the, every wallet interface. I think in the real world, we don't have a single bank account for everything. We have a bunch of credit cards. They all share the same protocol, right? Visa, MasterCard, maybe. Or in Bangkok even. In Bangkok, I've seen like every single app has its own payment method, and they all integrate each other. My bank app can use Line Pay, Rabbit has Rabbit Pay. They all integrate each other. You can top up everywhere, right? I think this focus would be more interesting than having a single global wallet. And my question is, why do we try to, it feels counterintuitive to try to make a global wallet for the entirety of the EVMs, even though a lot of EVMs, have their own changes. If you deploy account abstraction on many chains, you see many of them are EVM compatible but not equivalent, right? So, yeah, I would like to focus on that. And for the second question, I'm interested in like Aztec and Starknet native account abstraction. What's the difference with zkSync native account abstraction? And how do you guys handle like session keys, right? Because with 437, you could have session keys. You can grant access to a backend wallet to interact on your behalf. You can do cool things, automation, etc. But with native AA, a lot of this, unless you deploy code to the account, right? The beauty of native AA is not having to deploy code. You have some base account, right? Like on zkSync, I can keep my MetaMask, have gasless transactions, but it also limits things like session keys. How do you plan on, unlocking some features that are in 437 and native AA? A bit long-winded, I apologize.
I can take the first question here. So basically, it's talking about the flow of account abstraction, right? I have no idea how it's going to look like. But to me, first of all, we can separate account abstraction, like who it's doing good for, as for us in the room, and for us in the room in a couple of years from now, hopefully a year from now. But for us in the room, I feel like the biggest unlocks are things like session keys, for instance. I go into an app, I mean, raise your hand if you've ever signed something that you didn't really understand. Nice. Whoever didn't raise their hand. Yeah, good for you guys. I definitely did.
Or you didn't use blockchains enough. Either or.
Yeah. So for me, this is a huge unlock for us, right? But for the future us, or for like the other people that will be here in the room in the future, I see two different flows that are possible. The single sign-on flow, where you have like an Okta situation where you have one hub with all of your applications that you're using, and you basically direct you through the apps, and you're managing everything there, or potentially you're not even knowing what apps you're using behind the scenes, but you're just using it through this one hub. The other flow that I see is not a single sign-on, but it's almost like the password manager flow. So in that case, what we do is we just go and we interact with apps, right? And then the apps don't have a login flow. They almost have like somewhat of a session inflow. Here's what you can do on this app. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Or maybe these apps already know what the user come in for, and then they just let you do that. And then the experience in the app is completely seamless. I have my preference as a user right now, but I also admit that who on earth knows how it's going to look like when everybody's financial future is actually on chain. I hope that there will be different competitors doing these two flows and obviously more, and we'll just get to choose.
Just in the interest of time, do we want to move to the second question maybe?
Yeah,
If that's okay?
Yeah, I can take it. It's a good question. So you wanted to know, how does account abstraction work on Aztec, and how do you do session keys, right? Okay, cool. So you have an account contract that you deploy when you're creating your Aztec address. In that you can write whatever you want, all of the rules. There is an upgrade opcode, so you can change the rules as you need them to be. How do you do session keys is not too different to how do you do session keys in 4.3.7. I think because there are so many nice libraries, people forget what session keys actually are. You literally just create a new key that signs your transaction. So because Aztec has private accounts, your public key, is stored like privately for you in your account contract as a UTXO note, and you can just add another note. Like, okay, if it's signed by either of these two notes, just go do it. The better thing though is because you have zk proofs, privacy, you don't actually sign a transaction and send it and then nodes validate your signature. Instead what happens is you create a zk proof of the signature. So like a node can actually know that the signature is legit without having to like figure out what your public key is and stuff. It sounds magical, but power of zk proofs. Like I don't even need to know what your public key is to know that your signature is correct. And so session keys actually become much easier. Your first point was more like why do we care so much about a global wallet? It's a very idealistic world of having app-specific wallets the way banks work today, right? So we're at 0. You want to go to 1, which is this really cool world, exactly how the real world works. And you're thinking we go to 0 to 1 in a straight line, the most efficient manner. Whereas in reality, the way the world works is there are scribbly lines. You go first here, you take 2 steps back, you take 4 steps forward, you come back, you figure out what's wrong, and everyone experiments. And the reason you need import wallets right now is because all wallets are still new. They might have bugs. Some wallets might have features, other wallets do not. For example, MetaMask sometimes gets my gas estimations wrong, but it has some really good features. Rainbow gets my gas estimates right, but it has some really bad features. So now I need to sometimes use Coinbase wallet, sometimes I need to do that, right? Like Coinbase wallet does not support having a custom RPC. So now if I can't move, I'm completely locked with that RPC. But yeah.
We have time for one more crisp,
Can I just
quick
answer
audience question.
Quickly, like 30
Yeah.
seconds? I think
30
I may be
seconds.
wrong, but I will just explain one simple thing about the difference between native account abstraction and account abstraction. When you send a transaction in EVM, you don't put a from field in your transaction. It is guessed from your signature. So account abstraction on EVM must be relayed by some guy. So like the mempool, the 437. In Starknet, what native account abstraction just means that you add a from field in your transaction, and then the sequencers knows to look for your logic in this place, which means that native account abstraction does not mean you don't have like lots of code. You actually get lots of code. So the way session keys is done in Starknet is just code that says, hey, this DApp is requesting transfer and swap namespace on like 1 hour. Do you sign yes or no? If you sign yes, the DApp is going to send those transactions for you. So Starknet has session keys, and the way it's done is very simple code.
Great. I think we had one other question here.
Hey guys, thanks for the panel. This was really good. I'll limit it to one specific question. So we talk about account abstraction and 4.3.7, the smart contract layer, but really, like, you still need a signer. And it was always weird to me that we abstract things, but really you still need a wallet. You need a MetaMask or you need something else. I think maybe one of the innovations that we have embedded wallets now that go invisible, and Passkey is a really good signer too. My question is on Passkey actually, so it seems like that could be the future. But Passkey feels like it wasn't made for being like a universal signer at all. It's actually constrained to one domain.
Yep.
And so is that gonna, like, are we running into a wall there with passkeys, or is there a...
I mean, there's again a great talk by Nicolas Bacca specifically on passkeys that's going to tackle that much better than we would in 1 minute. So I strongly encourage you to go watch Nicolas Bacca talk about that. The big advantage of passkeys is that they are free. They are completely free. Like it's hosted in your device, it's replicated on the cloud, and so on and so forth. But they are free. You're not logging into a third-party application or giving email or something to another provider, having some back and forth pop-ups and so on. They are free, and you have a native overlay on getting the passkey to the person. It's a hack around passkeys. Like it wasn't meant to be used like this, and you also needed to implement the passkey signature curve. So it's complex, but it's a very, very, very straightforward way to give a signer to a person. Now, with account abstraction, we arrive at a situation where we can separate the account and the signer, something we should have done much sooner, of course, but passkey is a very good signer to put a first signer in the end of someone. I don't think this is the definitive signer, and one of the advantages of having the account abstraction is that you can have multiple signers and even quantum-resistant signers if you feel like there is a threat. You can move to having better signers this way, and that's great to have that inside the account abstraction.
Wonderful. Thank you. And with that, we're out of time. So I wanted to thank the panelists, thank the audience, the sponsors. Thank you, everyone, today. We've got a great agenda. Stick around. Thank you.